Hello, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Book Chat.
Hail and well met.
My name is Patricia Meredith, and I'm a mystery author.
And I'm Andrew D. Meredith, fantasy author, epic fantasy author of epicness.
Yes. And tonight, thank you for joining us live to celebrate the launch of the Kallattian Kickstarter, which actually launches on
Friday night.
Friday
during the day.
Friday,
Yes,
Friday during the day. So Friday during the day. But if you go to Kickstarter right now, you will be able to find the Kickstarter for Kallattian, and we'll be talking all about that tonight and all the stuff that has gone into the creation of it.
Yeah.
Until now.
It's been a long road.
Yes. Yeah. We were realizing.
Not a fast road.
Yes, we were realizing it's been.
This is the second anniversary.
Yeah.
This is the second anniversary for Kallattian. When I first launched the Kallattian cycle, which we can talk about that too. July 27th, 2022. For my 40th birthday is why I did that.
Yeah. And so in just 2 years, he's published all 4 books in the Kallattian saga. So
yes,
we're very excited. So,
but tonight we're going to do this as more of an open Q&A as well. So if you have any questions, please ask them.
Yes.
And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, Ganesh.
Yes. So all right. So we always start with our random questions, right? So since he's the guest tonight, I will ask him his random
Bring him
questions. On. Yes. So here's your first bookish question. Would you rather only read the first page of a book or just the last one?
Would I rather read only the first or only the last?
Yeah.
Only the first, because you'd have no context for the last page, just to be a last page.
Yeah.
But a first page, at least you could have ideas from that.
Exactly. You can wonder, where is this going to head?
Because the last page doesn't often reveal something. It's often the up end of the kiss, the chef's touch.
Yeah.
Not the first page.
Yeah. There's that rom-com from the 90s, Serendipity, where her thing is that she always chooses a book by reading the last page of the book, and it drives me nuts. Because I'm like, who could do that? Who could shop by reading the last page of a book? Especially so as a mystery author, right?
Yes. You
can never read the last page of the book. It might give everything away. So I guess even for fantasy though, like it would give too much away. So I'm not.
Especially since my first book published, the last line is one of my favorite lines I've ever written.
Exactly. Yeah. In Thrice?
Thrice. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I won't spoil it.
Yeah, you won't spoil it, but don't go open Thrice and read the last page, please. All right. Second one. Do you listen to music while you read?
While I read, no. While I write, yes. Generally, sometimes I go looking for mood music, but almost always I fall back on the 3-hour Rohan theme. It just loops and does the helicopter shots of the location of Edoras without needing the buildings there. So I don't know if it was done before or if it's done in 4K since then, but it's just 3 straight hours of flying over Edoras and playing the Rohan theme. And that because I don't have to think, and it just gets me in the fantasy mood. If I'm like writing a battle, I'll switch to something else. But that one I can just zone and listen to Rohan theme. Yeah.
So, but when you're reading, you don't listen to music.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And
when
it'd
you're
be too distracting.
When you're writing, can you listen to music without words, or do you always have to have?
Without words.
Yeah.
Like Lo-Fi Girl is always great, but there are a lot of good fantasy lo-fis now. Blue Turtle has a really good. He's curated fantasy theme music to animations he's done, which is done in like a really great. If you've seen Aramek on Twitter, who does the same sort of watercolor and ink style. But Blue Turtle has animations where it's usually just nature, and then his main character will come walk across the screen. as he's going on his adventure, and he's got like 20 videos, and they all kind of sort of tell a story without ever having words.
Oh wow!
And it's all different fantasy music he's curated to put over his animation. It's very good.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
awesome. All right. So, what's a book that's been sitting on your TBR for way too long?
Jenny Wirtz.
You read the first one.
I read the first one, and it was amazing.
Yes.
And I started the second one, and the first 2 chapters are amazing.
Yeah.
And I just haven't gotten back around to it.
You've just been a little busy
I've
writing
been
a book.
Writing mini books.
Writing a book. Yes. All right. Last one. It's the question every time.
Only 1 week
Someday,
have we not grabbed it.
You guys will find out what that question is. What is the best movie version of a book?
Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Correct answer.
I have, and I'm not saying of the 3, though I have a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord of the Rings is one movie.
Yes.
And it's 11 and a half hours long until they extend it again.
Uh-huh.
But it will never not be on my top 10. And there's no reason for me not to say it's number 1. It's number 1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other ones can move around, but it's too perfect. And every time you watch it, you go, nope, it is flawless.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a single flaw that you might be able to say, well, I guess that's sort of a flaw. But if you have to say, I guess it's sort of a flaw, it's not.
Right.
Every movie has flaws.
Yeah.
But it's too good.
You're just reaching for straws.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple questions.
So I see that. I was
I
going to get through my random ones.
So I can't read them from here.
So now that we're done with the random ones, there's some questions from folks who are here. Thank you for joining us. Some Okie dude asks, what inspired you to write the series of Kallattian?
When I was a young child, I read Bulgariad and basically fanficked it in my head for years.
Mm-hmm.
And the original Kallattian was as fanficky as you can possibly get. And I didn't outgrow that until after I wrote the full book in 2010. So that was 15 years of it in my head as a fan fiction, basically. And after those 15 years, I wrote the book, and it was bad. And me taking it apart down to its absolute core and rewriting the whole thing, but leaving the characters who had developed. And I remember, even when we were dating, mm-hmm. that I was not good at writing dialogue at all. And I don't know if that changed while I was at FFG or just the more I read and understood how dialogue could work. And I think because
game fiction.
Yeah. And I think because I knew I was bad at dialogue, I internalized my improvement of dialogue to the point that when Kallattian was coming out, it was like, well, what is the plot? But your character and dialogue are great. And I'm like, I guess it is. I thought I sucked. And so that's just a crutch I'll probably always have. But so I improved dialogue over that. And so my whole life has come to this series. Yeah. I think. Yeah. So what inspired me to write it? My life. Because there's so many characters, and we'll talk about one later today, but that were inspired by people from my life that I could do them justice or do them injustice if I eviscerate them in fiction, which I have. Yeah.
Yes. But it has grown a lot.
Yes.
From that 15-year-old.
The villains are not the same villains.
No.
In fact, the villain is now the hero. The original villain, who I wasn't going to reveal for books, and then I was just going to have this big unveiling. Goes, who would ever expect it's a big brother? Choke me, gag me. And then I actually switched it out to I needed the siblings to be together, and now they're a main character. They are the main character, and so Hannon is a character who, in the original one, was this big villain. Was the villain? Yeah. I want to talk more about that here in a minute, but I don't want to go too far into it. Before showing, I want to share with you guys the book promo. That way you know what we're talking about. So those of you who are joining us, thank you so much for joining us live. We will be taking questions throughout tonight as we discuss the Kallattian Kickstarter. But we want to kick things off by showing you the book promo and the Kallattian Kickstarter promo, so you have an idea of what we're talking about. And then we can dive more into unpacking the brilliant mind behind the creation of all of this. Before we start it,
so
the music is original music by Barrett Finken, who I had composed this for me. The lyrics I wrote, and they're evoking. It's actually a song from a scene in Deathless Beast, where paladins are sitting around the campfire and they all sing a song. So you're also going to hear a song, and then the video was crafted and mastered by this great lady right here.
We both worked on it.
Okay.
All right. Here you go.
Golden light arrest mine eyes.
I'm gonna start it over, guys, because I messed that up. Sorry.
Golden light arrest mine eyes as the dawn approaches. With its ebbing amber light, I will see it bloom. The hills of Portumerias run across the land. My soul is strengthened and renewed, and in my faith I stand.
I'm Andrew D. Meredith, and I want to welcome you to my brand new Kickstarter for the release of the fourth book in my epic fantasy series, the Kallattian Saga. Dread Knight concludes the first arc in the series, bringing the threads from the first 3 books to a stunning conclusion. If you've been looking for your next fantasy adventure with immersive world building and characters forced out of their depth, then the Kallattian Saga is a perfect choice. I've got some awesome stretch goals planned, but we're opening with a bang. This Kickstarter will be the first chance for you to get all 4 books in hardcover in my deluxe box pledge level. Join me right now on this journey, quest, thing, and we'll bring the hardcover version of the Kallattian Saga to print together.
There you have it.
So that's the video that will go at the top of the Kickstarter for everybody. But we'll put it on YouTube too, so that it can be shared. Yeah.
So there you go. So that's Kallattian, and we're very excited to be launching the first 4 books with new hardcovers and all sorts of fun things.
Yep.
So I think a good first question is this one right here.
Yeah.
Bearded Book Beast is asking, how did the whole Kickstarter idea begin, and how long ago did you start thinking about it? Love the covers.
I've been thinking about Kickstarters for ever.
Yeah, since we started.
Mm-hmm. It's a big. You don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And I've messed up a Kickstarter before. I had a Kickstarter on a game I did 10 years ago, and ended up canceling it before it got finished because it just didn't work out and we didn't have everything together. But so I've been kicking this around for a long time, and you see other who are successful doing it. There's a lot of advantages to Kickstarter, not just because it kicks things off, but it also reaches a whole new market. I mean, you all know me from YouTube and from Twitter and Instagram and BookTube and you name it. I'm there. But Kickstarter is a whole different ballgame. There's people who are there who that's the only place they shop. They buy all their stuff, all their collectibles off of Kickstarter. So it's a chance to grow my influence with other readers too, a chance for you to help me reach them as well. We've got a pretty easy goal. We're going to go for 1,600 is what we need. And that'll get it funded. Because the thing with Kickstarter is if you don't reach funding, there's no money. You don't lose money. I don't get money. That's just over. And I can still print the book. If we do that, it's just a lot slower. It's just like every other book that I've done, right? That I've just done as is. But this is a great way for you to pre-order and get matching covers. And that's the big thing, is the covers have gone through evolution after evolution. From we talked about, 2 years ago I launched the books as the Kallattian cycle, and that was Deathless Beast was released as 3 books. And that was because I was still learning the indie industry, and it was a marketing mistake I had made. I had all my research I had done over the course of 2017 through 2020 and watched how indie was evolving, and I was still basing my knowledge off of that era of indie. And after 2020, everything changed.
Pre-2020. Exactly.
Right. After COVID, everything changed.
Indie looked very different from how it does now.
So we had launched, and it was a mistake we made, and I immediately pulled them down within a month, I think. Didn't launch the next 3, which were going to be Bone Shroud, and then held my breath until Christmas time when I released both Deathless Beast and Bone Shroud in November and December of 2022. So that was a fresh launch. I was still writing book 3, Gloves of Eons, and went from that. And it took a little, and I felt like I was in a good position to do that because I didn't have a large audience yet. So for me to make a big change was not going to shake the boat.
No. But it has made something that he can share his knowledge with other people, right? It was a mistake that we made that you can learn from and know not to do.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And we love talking to other indie authors and helping other indie authors get going. And that's definitely become part of your book testimony.
Yes.
Yeah. But now we're going to be releasing them with all new covers. It's all cover art that Andrew has done himself. And do you want to talk about that now? A little bit about the cover art?
Yeah. Well, we can show them a little closer.
So these are just book.
These are mocks.
These are just mocks that we made.
We're getting the actual versions of it. But this is book 1, Deathless Beast. The red will be a lot more redder because this is just off of my printer. But you've got, obviously, it says Deathless Beast. And then you've got Hannon, main character, and his sister, Ralia, and then a little winged Wyloth, little flying monkey there. And there's lots of other details that you can't see in this print, but there's lots of filigree. I drew the characters and then put them in and Photoshop and did everything I needed to do to make them look the way I wanted them to. Just like audiobooks, I get a chance to give them the voices that I wanted. This was a chance for me to say, this is how I picture them in my head. You're welcome. So that's Deathless Beast. So,
and then when you actually get them, the hardbacks will have
we're going to do hardbacks, and then so if we hit 2,000, we'll add dust covers. In which case, this will be the dust cover, and then it'll be a naked cover underneath that will just have the Kallattian symbol, and then the name on the spine. But it will be a plain naked cover on both sides of the Kallattian symbol on, in this case, blue.
They look really beautiful.
Really great.
Yeah.
So Bone Shroud is Jinnid Paladin. And then Soraya, who we meet in Deathless Beast, but she becomes a character in this book. And then this is Whisper the Infall, everybody's favorite. And then Gloves of Eons, which just came out. Well, not just came out, but it came out a year ago, right? Last fall, I think.
Yeah.
It's got Katiam holding the Ratha in her hands, and Astrid, who she travels with. Whoops. And then a Griff, so a Raven Griffin on purple. And then now, Dread Knight, which is the end of the arc, the end of the first half of the Kallattian saga.
If you're one of those people waiting for the end, this is it.
This is an end.
Book 4,
and there will be a gap. When we do get to book 5 in a couple of years, there will be a gap. So this is the end of the arc, and then we'll start the new arc after that. But here's Dread Knight with the Dread Knight and Shroud wearing gauntlets there. And then over here, we have Dorian. I think you can see him there. Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
So there you go. So book 4 is brand new. Nobody's read it yet, except for me and the betas.
This is how it's releasing via this Kickstarter. So you back the Kickstarter, you get what you pledge for. So like in most Kickstarters, you can say, I just want an ebook. I just want an audiobook. I just want book 4 as a hardback or paperback. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go all in with our deluxe box,
Mm-hmm.
which will have all 4 books in hardback.
Mm-hmm.
You will also get all the audiobooks. You will also get all the ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
You will start with 2 vinyl stickers, nice vinyl stickers, 2 bookmarks, and 1 9x11 map of the area of Ganthic where the story takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, we will add a full map. You can go and get a full wall map. You can do that, but that's what'll be in the box. And then as we stretch past 2000 and beyond, we'll be able to add more vinyl stickers, more bookmarks, a foil bookmark later upgrade things.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're very, very excited.
But this is the way to get your hardbacks.
Absolutely. And to get your matching covers for all of your paperbacks. And it's going to be, they're going to look fantastic.
And you say, but I already have some of the books.
Yes.
Well, it's a good chance to give those away to somebody else. And I'll sign them and I'll send them to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or put them in little libraries. That's something that my parents are always doing, is putting them in little libraries and just sharing the love, right? Share the indie love, please.
Yes.
Because we love our backers. We love our supporters, because as indie authors, that's you. Yeah. We need you. We need you as readers. So thank you for your support. Yeah. All right. So we have a couple other questions. Diane is wondering if I've opted out of social media, which I know I know a lot of people totally respect that. Absolutely. Can you give me an idea of how could she promote and communicate about your Kickstarter to others, even those who might not normally read fantasy? What's the best way to do that? If
you're in a book club, you can let them know, hey, want to do a big old fat fantasy series for a book club?
Yeah.
There you go. That's one way we can do it.
Absolutely.
Tell your friends and family, because that's a great underground way to do it. Is to be able to.
Well, and email still works, right?
Email still works. So you can share with your friends that way.
Right. So your mom was saying, you could send emails to friends who are readers or who have fantasy readers in their lives, right?
Right.
Because that's something that we've definitely found is one of the reasons we love working together to sell books is because we'll talk to people and they might say, oh, well, I don't read fantasy, but I prefer mystery, or vice versa, right? But undoubtedly, when you start talking to someone, if they say, oh, well, I don't read fantasy, you might say, well, do you have a nephew who does?
Which I know Diane, you do, but he wrote the book, so it doesn't really count.
Yes.
But that's true. So the way that the Kickstarter works is we'll take whatever it is that you pledge, you get that. But in the post Kickstarter, we'll do a post campaign where in a survey, you can actually add on more. You can say, actually, I'd like 3 copies of Deathless Beast. And then we can charge you for that in the post, and we'll send you more copies. That's really not an issue.
Right. But these make great gifts. I mean, we're heading into Christmas season already. I mean, I know it's hard to think about that in July, but hey, Christmas in July.
I'm easy to reach too. Yes. So if you're like, can you wrap it?
Yes.
I'll pre-wrap it.
Yeah.
And sign it to whoever, or just sign it with no additional names so that it can be given out to friends and family.
Exactly. Yeah. But all 4 books, I mean, it's going to be a great deal. When you guys see the Kickstarter and you see how low our prices are, these are going to be great deals for how you can get all 4 books in either paperback or hardback. It's going to be
the deluxe box I mentioned is already worth $2,000 or 2,000 is worth $200 at get-go for $150 plus shipping.
Yes.
And it will only go up from there in value. Later on, I'm going to be doing a die-cast pin of the collation symbol that will be in the box for anybody who does the deluxe. You can add it on as an add-on as well at that point too.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have the lovely Anitha as always. What did I miss? Well, Anitha.
I'm launching a Kickstarter.
Yes,
on
we're
Friday.
launching a Kickstarter, and you should buy them all.
And it will go all the way through the end of August 31st. Yes. And I will have shipping to international.
To Canada.
Canada, England, Australia, EU.
Yep.
Probably I can do the rest of the world. I know I cannot do international PO boxes. I've learned from others who have done Kickstarter that it is it's the literal worst.
Yes.
So we cannot do PO boxes outside of the States because it's impossible to get them to people. Yeah.
But Anita has been a very strong supporter of
she
the
has.
Kallattian Saga.
She was an
loved
early
it from the
adopter.
very beginning.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you, Anita,
Yes.
for all your kind words and encouragement. Yeah, because she's loved it. So, and you should definitely give her a follow. She's got a great channel over there too. So, talking about lots of good fantasy books. So, and then earlier your mom was wondering. So as we dive into talking about some of the background and the world building and everything, first off, can you talk a bit about Ralia's evolution as a character?
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yes. Ralia was me. Ralia used to be Rawl, and Rawl was a quintessential example of a Gary Stu. It was me inside of the book, being awesome at literally everything, best fighter in the world. It was
and just naturally good at things.
Just naturally good.
The typical problem of a Mary Sue, right?
Mary Sue
Something
or
that
Gary
we learn
Sue, right?
as authors is you can't do that.
Right.
They have to have flaws. They have to have an arc to them, and that's something big is that you've learned a lot about arcs.
Correct.
So,
a whole lot about. Yeah. We're not here to talk for an hour about.
Yes.
Arcs. We can do that. You know this.
Yeah.
So when I did the refresh of the series in 2017, I knew I had to remove Rawl at the time as a main character, and I think I had written like 4 or 5 chapters of Hannon and Rawl. And the reason his name is Hannon is because the original character's name was it was a bad ripoff of Garion. I think it was Hanyin.
Yes. Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
Right.
And then that got removed, and Rawl was this other character who took over as the Gary Sue and then became the main character.
Yes.
So when I reintroduced Hannon as a sibling, the 2 brothers were going off and doing their thing. And I think it was my mom. I think it was Renee who said, why aren't they a brother and a sister?
Yeah.
Or
what if they were a brother and sister?
Yeah.
Right?
And then I was like, well, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Always listen to your mother.
Mom always knows best.
Yes, especially when they're also an artist and a writer.
Yes.
So I took that to heart, and Ralia was born, but she was still way too much of a Mary Sue at that point. So I took a major step back on Ralia's character and made Hannon the main character. He had more of an arc. He had more ennui. He just had a better personality to have to play with and force myself into writing something different.
Yeah.
So Ralia took a major took the backstage. She's still the better fighter. She's still much better than Hannon. Hannon almost, if you're looking really closely, he barely touches anybody. He's very cerebral. But doing that allowed me to take 4 books to let Ralia grow as her own character, so that when we get to the second half of the arc, Ralia can step forward as a primary point of view, and she will. So yeah, she actually survives book 4. I can tell you that because she's very important in the second half of the book of the series. So that's the evolution, is that Ralia and it used to be that it was Ralia, Jinid, and Soraya were the main characters. The 3 of them just traveled and did nothing but travel. It was awful.
Yeah.
When I rewrote the story, by separating the 3 of them into 3 different areas and having their own stories, they suddenly grew into their own characters that had more depth. That's why Jinid's so much easier to write. I was also older, and I was more related. I could relate more with him. So he grew them as a huge character. And Ralia has enjoyed her time outside of the limelight, I think, because she's had so much more arc as a secondary character that now she is a person that is separate from myself and can be her own character.
I would say Soraya and Jinid have changed the least from the beginning, from the first time I ever read it, which was when we were dating. So
by the end of book 4, Soraya has probably changed the most in the end, actually, because she used to be very much you. But she goes through the most trauma in the whole series.
Right. But I mean,
every single book.
Character wise, like she's still who I read when I was first introduced to her 17 years ago. Right. Ralia is completely different. Jinid has not changed at all. No. But again, Jinid was joined by Katim.
And he was joined by Dane.
Oh,
so in the 2010 version, he was a chauvinist.
Yes.
And Soraya had to put him in his place.
Yes.
And I've gotten much better dialogue. And just thinking about that now and what you're editing right now is I'm much better about putting people in their place too in the books. And so when I separated the two of them, I separated Jinid from Dane. Basically, the creation of Dane allowed Jinid to be the sounding board for the chauvinist, who Dane is, right? And so Dane was able to really go off the deep end and continue off the deep end, as Jinid was saying, "You stupid moron," every step of the way, and saying, "Oh, we all want to say," and having to also check himself.
Which kind of goes with this question right here. So, if you're able, where did Dane come from? Is he based on anyone? But without saying anything,
he's not. He's not.
He's really not. He's an amalgam.
He's an amalgam. Because we all know a Dane.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter if you come from. I think that's why
so many people love to hate him. Right?
Exactly.
He's like a Snape character.
Right.
Everybody knows somebody like him.
Right. And generally, most Danes we know in our lives are from when we're kids. And we can look back at high school and know there's that one guy who was that dude. And you might meet him now and realize he's completely changed. He may not change, but he's completely changed. And he's not because he's grown up and his life has happened. So we can forgive that. Dane's 42, I think. I think there's a discussion in book 3 or 4 where it's about, I think it's in book 3, that he's, because I don't ever really talk about how old a lot of them are. Yes, I kind of imply. I know how Hannon and Ralia and Ophidia are given on their age. I don't really talk about how old Jinid and the twins and Dane are until book 3. They're in their late 30s, and Dane's actually like 42, might be 44. So he's not changing his high school ways. Yeah. I'm never going to discuss why he is the way he is. I know.
He does go through an arc, though.
He is going through an arc.
Books 3 and 4.
He has some changes.
But we won't give too much away because it's going to be no spoilers. So, but Dane, has lots. So you talked about Kallattian.
Yes.
So when Kallattian came out of the blue, she was, I don't know where she came from, and I'm so thankful for her because she's one of my favorites now.
Her name comes from way back in the 90s when she was kind of like, now, Kallattian and Ophidia are a split from an original character who was not so curvy. She was, she wasn't a sultry character like Ophidia is.
Right. Yeah.
So they've both take the middle and go this way with both of them, and you get Ophidia and Kallattian from this original character that existed, who I think was called Kallattian. I forget what her name was. But Kallattian came because I wanted to show the Paladines and their points of view.
Right.
And so that was important.
But I don't think she came into existence until after we became parents. And I think that's part of why her character is so, her character is very powerful. Somebody asked earlier, who's my favorite character? Anita. Yeah. Who's my favorite character? I would say Kallattian now. I love reading Kallattian's sections. I think she's one of my favorites.
Hers is also the most discovery.
Yes.
I decided at the very beginning that hers is going to be a motherhood arc.
Right.
It has evolved into meshing with the actual life arcs more because there's no motherhood. You can't say, you can look at what motherhood is from beginning to end, but the actual have an arc is really hard to define. So I've layered that. But hers is a motherhood arc. And I think that's why she's a discovery. I know where she's going, but I don't know why.
Okay.
I know the steps that she'll go on, and hers is actually the most classic fantasy quest in a way over the course of the whole 8.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I'm going to land that one because I have no idea. That's the one I have no idea how I'm going to land it.
I think she naturally will. She has naturally grown in such a beautiful way that I think.
And hers is also, I think, the most about friends. The friends we find and lose.
Yeah.
It's about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the friends we meet along the way and about motherhood. And that's so intertwined.
Yeah.
Or in her case, so intervined.
Yeah. And yes, exactly. Let's see. And then Dean and Sue are asking, how did you come up with your pantheon? And how do you keep them all straight?
I can keep them all straight because they're very old. I've had them since
you were 15?
Since the 90s. Yes.
Yeah.
They are very old. They've had some evolution. There was a massive change when I removed all normal animals from the books. When I
Mhm.
changed them over, because they originally had an almost Egyptian quality to them. That Kasseron had a wolf's head.
Mhm.
Nefara had a cat's head.
Mhm.
So there was a bit of that, but because there are no cats or dogs in my world, I needed to remove that. So they kind of still have those features. If you think of Nefara, she's very feline in a way, but she's no longer the cat goddess. So there have been changes from that that have evolved. I keep track of them because I've just known them for so long. They're friends of mine
Mhm.
in so many ways.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, when I first met them, you were working on. He was drawing
Yes.
images that were going to go into the book. They were going to be like a book of hours.
Yes.
So they were
Illuminated
medieval
manuscript.
manuscripts, illuminated manuscripts. You do still have those.
Still have those.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll have to find those and upload to the wiki at some point.
Yes.
Which, by the way, there is a Kallattian saga wiki that you can check out. I think if you just go to wiki.
If you look, it's inside of fandom. If you look up Kallattiad,
yeah,
Kallatttiad, the Kallattiad, that's its name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you go there, it has everything up through book 2 at least. I think we're still uploading some things. For book 3.
A lot of 3.
But anyway, we'll put them up there so you guys can see them. But he has these illuminated manuscripts, and so I can visualize
the creation myth.
And it's and it was gonna open book, back when there were prologues before fantasy
and of creation of the world
prologues. He had one.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's one of those things.
I spent months working on that.
You could publish somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's that would go on the wiki, right? That'd be a great thing for the wiki.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the whole creation of the world with the existence.
And 7 pages.
Yep.
Because I was a comic book artist, is what I was doing in college. Was trying to be a comic book artist, so it was part of it. And I've always loved illuminated manuscripts, which is why I did these.
Right, which is why they look like this.
There was an interim design I was doing. But right before I did this one, it was very illuminated manuscript.
Yes.
It wasn't quite working. It needed it. For the illuminated manuscript, you have to land it perfectly, or it looks like garbage. Yeah. And I wasn't landing it, so it looked like garbage. So I decided to step back and make my characters much more realistic. Got to use models.
Yep.
For Soraya is Trisha. Some other things I found online to evoke what I was going for. Right here, Dorian, and for those family online right now, Dorian's face, if you can see him, see if I can get a good shot there. Dorian's face might be recognizable to Meredith's if you put a beard on it. Because it's this guy. Ooh, let's see if we can do that with the glare. There we go. So this is my grandfather, Jack Meredith. And if anybody is based on anybody more in these books, it's Dorian based on my grandfather. So he is now immortalized on a cover. Yeah. And immortalized in a book. Yeah. So because he's a huge inspiration for why the theme of the book is about the passing of the torch, and not just passing of any torch. It's the good passage of legacy, that you have fought the good fight and you're passing it on to the next generation. Well, and if there is one theme that's running through these 4 books specifically, it's that torch being passed. Yes. Yeah. And hopefully being picked up.
Right. By the right person.
By the right people.
By the right person.
Yes. Because there's lots of threads. I mean, it is an epic fantasy that is about several threads that come together and then take off and do their own thing. Are they still related or aren't they? I guess we'll find out. But Bone Shroud specifically, you now have all 3 threads are together of Katiam, Hannon, and Jinnit.
Yes.
And then Soraya.
Yes. And
then book 3 explodes them, and they all go their separate ways. And some of them come back together, some of them never do. Because now I've set the tone and can have the torch being passed and moving as the world is burning, and metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes physically.
Sometimes physically.
Sometimes literally. Yeah. But yeah. But with the Pantheon, a little bit more about
so
there is a list of the Pantheon in the back. So,
Yep,
so
there's
if
always a
you're
list of
reading
the
the book
Pantheon.
and you can't get them all straight,
Yep.
there is a list in the back, and that will be in the new version as well. But
made my dad cry.
I know
That's a first.
You're making, yeah. You made me cry.
Yeah. I'm holding it together.
Yeah.
So the Pantheon is very Tolkien-esque.
Yes.
So if you're like, well, I don't know how to describe it, it's Tolkien-esque. Tolkien opens up with Eru, right?
It doesn't matter.
Anyway,
talk about your world.
My world has the existence who speaks the world into existence and immediately creates the four gods. He makes the two brothers and then the two sisters, and then now we've got two families in the Pantheon.
Yeah.
And the four of them made the four worlds together, and then they have their children, and their children are also imbued with the power of the existence is passed down to them, and everything worships up. So they create their own people, their people worship them, who by doing so in turn are worshiping the existence. So there's a worship up effect heading towards the primary existence, who is, that's his name. It's he who was, he who is. So
the paladins and
paladins follow Grizone, who is the second born of Aben, king of heaven, and king of Loman, and his wife Chrysania, who's the future seer, who the paladins follow. And like, well, why don't the paladins pair up with those who follow her husband? Well, because those who follow her husband are those that pogromed and persecuted them, and so they ended up finding safety under her son's order, the paladins. And so I'm trying not just to be trite and well, of course everything's perfect. It's like, no, it's not.
Gods.
It's not just Greek gods. It's not just gods sleeping around with each other. It's
none of that.
It's very archangelish, if you will. They are not omniscient. They do not know all. They know a lot. They know a lot more, but they do not know all. And every one of them has their limits. Has different limits that they naturally have. They are just greater beings than we. And that's a theme.
And they're definitely real. I mean, there's lots of interaction with them, and you see that from the book one. That's not giving anything away.
That was my goal when I set to write the book. I wanted to write a series where you can't have an atheist. An atheist cannot exist. So how do you struggle with that idea of, but I don't want the gods to exist, but they do? That creates a whole different moral dilemma than you have of, I can choose not to believe that God exists or the gods exist. When you can't, what kind of moral dilemma does that create? And it lets me create, I mean, it was Stephen Erickson said that fantasy is metaphor made manifest. And I want, that's going to go on a tattoo someday. When I do my collation tattoo, who knows? Yeah, mom and dad, I'm getting a tattoo eventually, someday. It'll just be a hammer. But I might have to say, fantasy is metaphor made manifest, because I love that phrase so much. It is perfect. We argue all day long on what is fantasy. Well, it's a chance to discuss morals. Exactly. It's metaphor made manifest. Metaphors don't work. Well, they do in fantasy because it's metaphor made manifest. I love that phrase so much. And so I will often think about that. Like, what metaphor am I trying to draw here? And context, what context can I create with that? So
exactly. And so some Okie dude was also asking, so do the gods fight each other like the Greeks? You have to read the books.
Read the books. There's a dark pantheon that has formed from the pantheon.
Yes.
It is not strictly two family at war with each other, though it is. But not everybody from the bad family is evil. And some have even been forgiven. And there are those who are still fallen, and those who are not in the story yet.
Right.
So no, they're not constantly warring. They are constantly. I will reference the balance and the imbalance. Those who are of an evil mindset are seeking to cause imbalance.
Yes.
So that when a thing should happen, imbalance is already in place to make it worse. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts, hands down, my favorite part of his Kallattian Saga series is each book has at least one, maybe two stories around the campfire. moments where someone will tell a story. In fact, including the novella, the Fleeting Word is a prequel novella, which is out there. Highly recommend picking it up. But every single one has this story around the campfire, and usually one of them has something to do with a story about the gods, about what are they up to, or how creation, things like that.
Right.
There's one point where they're putting on a play. They're like watching a play of the creation.
Yeah.
And so you introduce all of the characters.
Told in a pre-Shakespearean medieval play style.
Yes. It's beautifully done. Very Greek. Very wonderful.
Yes.
And then in this one, in Dread Night, you guys are in for a treat, because there's a story, at least one story that is told that will give you a little bit more insight into what is going on above the scenes and behind the scenes
and in the scenes
and below the scenes.
Yes.
In regards to the gods' involvement with what story is unfolding here.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you chills when you read it, and you're like, oh, one of those moments where you're like, oh, I see what's going on. So it's fantastic. I also wanted to throw in there, your dad was saying he loves the word paladin, right? You immediately know what it means. It is a new word. It is a word he made up. So
I want that in a dictionary somewhere.
There you
go.
Badly. Paladin. Yeah, it's a brilliant way of saying. We've always had paladin, not always, but paladin, the word has been around. The etymology, it goes back quite a ways. Mm-hmm. It's been around for quite a long time. But paladin is brand new because he wanted a female version of the paladin, and I love it. They kick butt. Oh, I love it. There's the scene,
especially in book
one.
4.
Yeah,
book 3 and book 4, they kind of come into their own.
Yes,
but there's several good scenes in 4.
You're in for some good, fights.
Yeah,
some good sequences there. So, and then your mom. Speaking of, building backstory into your books, your mom was saying she loves your chapter openings, your epigraphs of the poems and fables that the verses, the traveler, right, that has continued throughout the whole book, through the whole series. And so how do you come up with all of those, and are they all interconnected? Will you publish them someday?
So they are not. Most of them are by inspiration. I don't plan them in the sense that I'm like, I need like Brandon Sanderson is a great example. In Way of Kings, book 1 specifically, there's this tie of all the epigraphs are last words recorded of someone before they died. And some of them are psychotic because it's the psychosis of dying causes them to say something weird. So are they a prophecy? And there's that whole theme that happens through the book. I didn't do that, but I try to generally theme them to the story. Sometimes they're just quippy lines I write, and it makes people worry. Thing in Bone Shroud, there's one that's 9 times the core knocked, and then the infall died. And then the scene opens with Whisper doing something. You're like, oh crap! You're gonna kill Whisper. He just got introduced. I'm not gonna kill Whisper. It's just a funny little poem about an infall and a core. But it was one that it was like, I loved the line so much. It was way too Edgar Allan Poe-ish that I had to keep it in. So it's stuck. And I love that one. Yeah. So some of them, I'm not going to tell you which ones, except for that one, have nothing to do with anything. They're just for fun. Other ones, the chance, like Traveler's a good example. I will sometimes realize, I haven't done a Traveler stanza for a while. I should do one. And I'll write one to the theme of the chapter about to happen. And then I record it elsewhere because I'm slowly building the Traveler and if someday I have to sit down and actually write the whole poem and figure out all the missing stanzas to finish the story.
But that's your Beowulf. It will be a long form.
When I do that someday, that's going to be, I'll have to get a illustrator and it'll be illuminated and it'll be a thin but expensive little poetry piece. Yeah.
Just a very
like Ladies of Grace Ado was for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Yeah. But you do write your epigraphs last.
I do them last. Some of them, I'm out of them now. Like I had a ton I wrote early on, and so I was kind of using them as I needed. Yes. Like I'll try to make sure they're in theme enough that if it's like a Soraya chapter, it's going to be something about the monks of Nefara. If it's a Katiam chapter, I'll try to make sure it's some recipe or poetry piece about the Chrysalis and the Paladins.
Yes.
Paladins is Paladins if it's Hanan, but the Traveler will be anywhere. And so I have so much fun. But yes, it's the last thing I do. I finished the book. I've gone through and edited it. Maybe I've written a couple epigraphs, and then I have to spend a day sitting down, and I just sit there and inspiration floods me, and I write like 50 epigraphs in a day, and I look back and go, I don't know what I just did, but it's amazing, and I'm so happy with it.
Yes.
So it's one of the last things I do, and I'm usually in a really great mood that day because I love writing those. If someone just said, Andrew, write my epigraphs for me, I won't do it for free because I shouldn't. Yeah, but I will enjoy myself. Yes, I love them so much.
And I think part of that is because it's such a different voice, right? Yes. He's trying to write a completely different voice for the epigraph, so he kind of has to do it separately.
Yeah, I'll challenge myself.
A lot of scripture. It's a lot of
there's Evelyn Gavilan is my Shakespeare in my world, and he has written several plays. And I reference him a lot, especially in book 2 and 3. I referenced him before that, but then I actually start writing full stanzas, and I will try to not just be Shakespeare in that he tried different rhythms than in each of his different epic plays. But I don't write in iambic pentameter. He's written both in iambic octameter and iambic, what's 12? Dodecatameter, I think it is. So he does it in 12 beats, which sits a little different. So you'll notice it's not iambic pentameter, but it's in 12s or in 8s. And I have fun. So I'll challenge myself and say, I'm literally going to write only a single, not even a full soliloquy, but I'm going to write it in iambic octameter because I want to, and I'll have a crap ton of fun doing that because it's a challenge and it's fun to just channel that. And maybe someday I'll write those too. I don't know. Who can know? Who can know the ways of Andrew?
It says you can write like Shakespeare.
Yeah,
That's
I try.
Cool. Well, and we love like the there was the Star Wars series that was Star Wars Shakespeare. Yes. Well, Shakespeare is if Shakespeare had written Star Wars,
Shakespeare
right?
does New Hope.
There was a whole there was a whole series of books.
I think they've done all 9,
including the new ones.
They've done all 9.
Okay. We love
they're so good.
Those kinds of plays on. I don't know. We love.
I would hire him to write it. Absolutely.
We love
So because he's making so many meta references too, and also meta references back to Shakespeare.
Yes.
Where he'll make references about Shakespeare in Star Wars of a line that is specifically from Much Ado About Nothing, or then switching over and doing this line and that line. And R2-D2 is like the greatest character ever written once he goes into his soliloquies. And nobody can understand him, but he does. And so he turns to the audience and gives these long soliloquies. You're like,
wonderful.
Oh, what a great character. Yeah, you got to check those out.
Yeah. But we do plan on eventually someday we would publish a collection of all the stories that are within there. Because they're wonderful and they're my favorite part. So we only have a few minutes left. So real quick, world building. Yes. Like where did the world come from and how varied is it? And are we going to see new countries?
Yes.
In the future?
Book 4 goes into a whole new section of book 3 was about backtracking. Back through the ways the characters had come so they could pick up pieces that had fallen apart.
Yeah.
And book 4 specifically kind of leaves into zones outside of that that give a lot more world building I wasn't expecting, like the Chalicians, who were kind of referenced into, are really seen in 3 and become the big baddies in 4, one of the big baddies in 4. So you see a lot of the Church of the Chalice, and a lot of this is me setting a lot of stage for 5 through 8, but I had to tie off a lot of bows to make sure that
it's a lot of
that you feel like you've gotten to the end and you can say, oh, that is an end.
It's
what are we going to do? What's going to happen now?
But to be continued.
Right. So very much why it's why I say specifically end of the arc. It's not the end of the series. There are still 4 more to come, and prequels after that. So or before that. And enter. Within them. But this is definitely like if you're like, okay, I want to start and end a series. Here you go. Yep. Read all 4 of them. Pick up the novella too, just because it's fun. Yeah. And because it just gives you more world building behind it. I would recommend reading the novella. After book 2? Probably after book 2. Yeah. It will be available in print for the first time. with this Kickstarter as
yes.
an add-on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So
So let's tie up the Kickstarter.
I was going to say, well, so Anita was asking, when is Dread Knight coming out?
So here's
here
the timeline.
Yeah.
This Friday, the Kickstarter launches. It will
Mm-hmm.
run through August 31st. It will end on August 31st. After that happens, there will be of several weeks of both Kickstarter moving funds around, making sure people who have committed are committed. And then that comes to me, at which point I can then open up the floor to the backers to say what it is they want. So even though you know what you want, you're really just kind of pre-pledging in your head what you're going to get. You can add things on after the campaign is over. And then
and once you see what stretch goals have unlocked, and you're like, oh, okay, well now I definitely want that.
Right. And I currently have stretch goals planned all the way through 20,000 backing. We'll go bigger, please, by all means. But then I will be able to place the order for the books that we've laid out at that point. Recorded the audiobook for Dread Knight, which I'll be doing over
we'll
August
be ready
September.
to go.
So we'll be ready as we always are.
It's more finding out what little extras you guys want, so that way we can get those printed.
And how many copies of the books that I need to order.
Yeah.
So I'll be placing that order in the middle/end of September. So I can get all the books here to my house, so I can sign them all, prep them all, ship them to you all, to have them by the end of October is the goal.
I was going to say, so a safe bet would be end of October.
End of October. International to Canada.
Yeah,
it could be longer. First week of November.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be end of November. I know what I'm doing with my books. It's not an issue to get the books ready and to me, so I can get them signed and shipped out to you.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of shipments to prepare, but.
Well, and like we said, just to clarify, the Kickstarter is technically for book 4.
Yes.
Right. So if you want to buy book 4, this is a way for you to basically pre-order book 4 in the format that you would like. It will have this cover.
Right.
So if you're like me and you really need them all to match, this is your chance to get them all.
Right. If you don't care and you say, I can't afford to buy $150 deluxe box, buy book 4.
Please.
You're good.
Yes.
And then later you can order them from me. The other thing is that the hardbacks, the only way to get them will be through this Kickstarter. And then after the Kickstarter, specifically through me. They will not be available through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anything.
Anywhere.
We're going to keep the hardback specifically as a from our website purchase.
Right. If you see us at a con or something like that,
those will be so you'll have to buy it from me is what we're saying.
Yes.
Paperbacks will eventually roll out. It can take time. So like if you're like, oh, I'll buy it later, you might order it off of Amazon and still get the old covers because they may have stock they still have to sell through. That's just the nature of the beast.
Right. So if you want to,
but you can always order in there from us, paperback as well.
Yes.
But we'll that's what the Kickstarter is also going to help us do is to have these things on hand, have additional bookmarks on hand so we can sell them, send them to you later. So that's where it helps us. Is this helps us
plan
as authors
ahead of time.
To really have things ready for the future, because we have a lot planned over the next several years. Not only Collation, not only at least 1 or 2 or 3 more cozies. We'll see. I got to finish Needle and Leaf. I'm working on book 3 and I'll be working on book 4. So 3 will be coming out, but book 4 we could see another Kickstarter with some matching covers in about a year.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I'm aiming for. And then we can start looking at the prequel to the Kallattian Saga, which is the Protectorate Wars, which will be a 4, possibly 5 book, and then a bunch of novellas later on of the wars, the Protectorate Wars. So we get to see the story of Dorian and Nethindel and Maida as 20-year-olds, as young people. And then I'll come back to Collation 5 through 8. So that's the roadmap that we're looking at. Keep an eye out. If you're not already following the Kickstarter, follow it, because you're going to get a notification that it's launched this Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
So and of course, you can ask me questions anytime, anywhere on socials, and I'm happy to answer them.
Yep. And we should have the link down below. If it's not there yet, it will be there. But there should be a link down below for the Kickstarter, so that you can give it a follow, and that way you'll be alerted first thing on Friday. So
should we end this with the promo video again as the end?
Do you want to? Sure. Okay.
Should we do that as the ending?
So okay, all right, we're gonna close it out with the book promo video. Let me see if I can get it to work this time to launch correctly. But thank you everybody so much for joining us live. Thank you for your amazing questions. Thank you for supporting us as authors.
Really appreciate it.
It means so much to us. So thank you so much.
Who do we have next week?
Next week is Adrian Miller.
Yes.
No. It's the week after that. Next week is Andrew's cousins are actually coming to visit us. They are D&D aficionados and amazing fantasy storytellers. And so we will be doing a live chat with them about D&D and fantasy storytelling and all of that and how that all ties together and influences.
And that'll be in person too.
That will be in person. Yes. So we're very excited for that. So so join us next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Golden light arrest mine eyes as the dawn approaches. With its heavy amber light, I will see it move. The hills of Portumerias run across the land. My soul is strengthened and renewed, and in my faith I stand.
I'm Andrew D.